India, a land of vibrant colors, ancient wisdom, and enduring spirit. For centuries, its history has been a captivating tapestry woven with threads of triumph and tragedy, resilience and reinvention. From the snow-capped Himalayas to the sun-drenched shores of the south, India's story has unfolded across a vast and diverse landscape. Our journey begins in 1757. The once mighty Mughal Empire is fading, and a new force emerges from the sea, the British East India Company. Driven by ambition and the allure of riches, they establish a foothold on Indian soil, marking the beginning of an era that would profoundly shape the subcontinent's destiny. Over the next 2 centuries, India's fate would be intertwined with that of its colonial masters. From the battlefields of Plassey to the salt pans of Dandi, the struggle for freedom would ignite the hearts of millions. Leaders would rise, movements would gather momentum, and sacrifices would be made in the pursuit of self-determination. But India's story does not end with independence in 1947. From the ashes of colonial rule, a new nation arose, determined to forge its own path. The journey has not been without its challenges, yet India has consistently defied expectations, emerging as a beacon of democracy, a technological powerhouse, and a leading voice on the global stage. This is the story of modern India, a testament to the indomitable spirit of its people and the enduring power of hope. The year is 1757. The Battle of Plassey, a seemingly insignificant skirmish in the grand scheme of history, would have far-reaching consequences. On that fateful day, the forces of the British East India Company, led by Robert Clive, clashed with the army of Siraj-ud-Dowlah, the Nawab of Bengal. Through cunning strategy and a web of intrigue, the company emerged victorious, marking a turning point in India's fate. What began as a trading venture gradually transformed into a quest for political dominance. The East India Company, driven by profit and empowered by its private army, exploited India's resources and subjugated its people. The once thriving textile industry was decimated, its artisans forced into poverty as British mills churned out cheap cloth for export. The company's insatiable appetite for revenue led to the implementation of exploitative land revenue policies, pushing farmers into debt and despair. Vast tracts of land were appropriated for cash crops like indigo and opium, leaving millions vulnerable to famine and starvation. Yet even in the darkest of times, the spirit of resistance flickered. Across the countryside, local chieftains and ordinary citizens rose up against the company's oppressive rule. These early uprisings, though often brutally suppressed, sowed the seeds of defiance that would later blossom into a full-fledged struggle for freedom. The year 1857 witnessed an unprecedented wave of anger sweep across India. The simmering discontent against the East India Company's rule, fueled by economic exploitation, religious insensitivity, and political subjugation, finally reached its boiling point. The immediate trigger was the introduction of the Enfield rifle, its cartridges rumored to be greased with animal fat, a sacrilege to both Hindu and Muslim sepoys in the company's army. From Meerut to Delhi, from Lucknow to Kanpur, the rebellion spread like wildfire. Sepoys broke rank, refusing to use the controversial cartridges. Ordinary citizens, long subjected to the company's oppressive rule, joined the uprising, their anger fueled by years of pent-up resentment. The revolt was characterized by acts of both immense courage and unspeakable brutality. Rani Lakshmibai, the Queen of Jhansi, became an enduring symbol of resistance, leading her troops into battle against the British. Mangal Pandey, a sepoy who dared to challenge the company's authority, sparked a movement with his act of defiance. The uprising of 1857, though ultimately crushed by the superior firepower of the British, was a watershed moment in India's history. It shattered the myth of the company's invincibility and exposed the fragility of its hold on power. Section 4. Seeds of Change. The Rise of Nationalism. The aftermath of the 1857 uprising brought about significant changes in the way India was governed. The British Crown formally assumed control, dissolving the East India Company and ushering in an era of direct imperial rule. However, the flames of rebellion, though extinguished for the time being, had ignited a new spirit in the hearts of Indians, a nascent sense of nationalism. Educated Indians exposed to Western ideals of liberty and self-determination began to question the legitimacy of British rule. They recognized the inherent injustice of being governed by a foreign power and yearned for a day when India would be free to chart its own course. In 1885, a group of visionary leaders, including Dadabhai Naoroji, Alan Octavian Hume and Dinshaw Wacha, came together to form the Indian National Congress, or INC. This marked a pivotal moment in India's struggle for independence. The NC, through its platform of peaceful agitation and constitutional reforms, provided a voice to the aspirations of a people yearning for self-rule. Within the NC, different schools of thought emerged. Leaders like Gopal Krishna Gokhale advocated for gradual reform and cooperation with the British, believing that India could achieve self-governance through dialogue and persuasion. Others, like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, championed a more assertive approach, demanding Swaraj, complete independence, and urging Indians to assert their rights. Section 5. Gandhi, the guiding light of freedom. The early decades of the 20th century witnessed the rise of a leader who would come to define India's struggle for freedom, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Returning from South Africa, where he had successfully employed non-violent resistance against discriminatory laws, Gandhi brought with him a unique approach to fighting for justice. Gandhi's message of Satyagraha, truth force, resonated deeply with the masses. He urged Indians to oppose unjust laws through peaceful means, to endure suffering without resorting to violence, and to appeal to the conscience of their oppressors. Under Gandhi's leadership, the Indian freedom struggle transformed into a mass movement. Millions of Indians from all walks of life joined the struggle, inspired by Gandhi's message of non-violent resistance. The non-cooperation movement of 1920 to 22 saw Indians boycotting British goods, institutions and laws, shaking the foundations of colonial rule. In 1930, Gandhi's iconic Salt March captured the world's attention. Walking for 24 days to the coastal village of Dandi Gandhi, along with thousands of followers, defied the British salt tax, a symbol of colonial oppression. The Salt March became a powerful symbol of India's resolve to break free from the shackles of colonialism. Section 6. Triumph and Tragedy, Independence and Partition. The Second World War proved to be a turning point in India's struggle for independence. The British, exhausted by the war effort, were no longer in a position to maintain their vast empire. The Indian National Army, led by Subhas Chandra Bose, had challenged British authority during the war, further weakening their grip on power. In 1947, the British government finally conceded to India's demand for independence. However, the joy of freedom was overshadowed by a tragedy of immense proportions: the partition of the subcontinent into India and Pakistan. The partition, based on the two-nation theory that Hindus and Muslims constituted distinct nations, led to one of the largest mass migrations in human history. Millions of Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs were uprooted from their ancestral homes, caught in the crossfire of communal violence that engulfed the region. The partition left an indelible scar on the subcontinent, its legacy continuing to cast a long shadow on relations between India and Pakistan. Yet, amidst the chaos and bloodshed, the dream of an independent India had finally been realized. Section 7. Nehru's Vision, Building a New India. On August 15, 1947, Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first Prime Minister, stood before a jubilant nation and declared at the stroke of the midnight hour, "When the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom." As the British flag was lowered and the Indian tricolour was hoisted, a new era dawned for India. Nehru, a towering figure in Indian politics, inherited a nation grappling with the wounds of partition and the challenges of rebuilding after centuries of colonial rule. He envisioned a modern, secular and democratic India, a nation that would play a leading role on the world stage. Under Nehru's leadership, India embarked on an ambitious program of nation-building. A new constitution enshrining the principles of democracy, secularism and social justice was adopted in 1950. Nehru recognized the importance of education and science in national development, establishing institutions like the Indian Institutes of Technology, or IITs, and investing heavily in scientific research. Nehru's foreign policy was guided by the principles of non-alignment and peaceful coexistence. He believed that India, newly independent, should steer clear of the Cold War rivalry between the superpowers and instead forge its own path in international affairs.